Welcome to the Average Joe Movie Show. I'm Matt Wallace. This is Andrew Brown. And this episode is sponsored by Shane Scantling because I forgot about him.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, this episode is specifically sponsored by Ragged Cadaver. Stick around and we'll show you some good stuff about horror enamel pins. He'll tell you the most. So, intro's out of the way. That was easy. Should we just end it? That was a good show. That was a good show.
Damn, we did it, guys.
Yeah, we fucking did it, boys.
Back to the fried chicken and beer.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the sponsors. You know. So we're going to talk about the Northman. We're also going to talk about the unbearable weight of massive talent, which I saw, and hopefully everybody else sees too, because it's amazing. Preview to what's coming up, and yeah, it's going to be pretty easy. We're just kind of getting ready for our next week's show, which is a Sam Raimi episode, and we're ready to roll with it. So, Drew, you were obviously most excited about this movie. You know, you're a Robert Eggers fan. You're a big fan of The Lighthouse, The Witch, and your expectations were high. And so, tell us how you thought of the Northman this weekend.
Yeah, it was such an unlikely scenario. I didn't think I was going to walk out of the movie underwhelmed. That's not the right word, because it's such a spanning epic. It's so masterfully done. It's so Robert Eggers. It's so beautiful. All the visuals, everything was painstakingly done, but it just didn't live up to my expectations, and I think I would rank it probably third. He's only made 3 movies, The Witch, Lighthouse, and The Northman. I think it's my least favorite of his.
No. Well, you say least favorite, so it's not like you hated the movie.
No,
so.
Absolutely not. It was one of the best movies of the year. I don't think it was my favorite movie of the year. I'd probably have to see a list to figure out what that is exactly, but I think my favorite movie of the year is probably still The Batman.
The Batman?
You know? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Over The Northman. So
all right.
A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me. I mean, there are people out there that are just absolutely raving about this movie, but it just didn't live up to expectations for me.
What were your expectations? Like, I know, like, in the sense of, we're not going to give too many spoilers away, but if you've seen Hamlet and The Lion King, you know it's going to fucking happen.
Right.
So, but we won't give away the ending, obviously, but we'll talk a little bit about what happens. And
so Robert Eggers' style, I described it like a fever dream in this movie, and that's the way it kind of is. It's very, very abstract, visceral, just strange, you know. A couple of us had compared this film to Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain, if anybody's seen that, as far as visuals go and stuff. And that's how they tie in a lot of the Nordic lore and mythology and stuff in this film. So it's not just a straightforward battlefield revenge epic. You know, it does become like a little surreal and, you know, kind of hallucinogenic at times and stuff like that. But I feel like either he could have went further with that aspect or dialed it back. I don't know. Like, I would have liked to see him go further with that kind of stuff. Have it become more surreal, more strange. Like,
do you think that he was kind of handcuffed to make a sort of blend?
You know, not really, because I swear it's like, I think they're giving Robert Eggers like a lot of creative freedom.
By the looks of it.
Yeah, I got to say, at this point, he's established himself enough that like, that's one exciting thing about his films, is that I feel like they're really going to give Robert Eggers creative freedom, and that was non-existent in the past with Hollywood studios, you know. But it was like, he made The Witch, and I loved it, and it got mixed reviews. Elevated horror, they called it. And then The Lighthouse was like, okay, here's my style times 1,000. You know, it just got so much more atmospheric and strange. And then with this one, he scaled it back, you know, and it's kind of the most approachable film that Robert Eggers has made so far.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not what I was looking for necessarily.
I mean, I can totally understand that. You know, like you have the expectation of what he makes rather than the content that was kind of presented. Is that kind of a good interpretation? So
I know they were trying to go for historical accuracy. So people are praising it for that.
Yeah.
So I'm a little ignorant. I don't know that much about Nordic, you know, classic history, mythology. I don't know that much about that kind of stuff. So some people that are into that sort of thing are probably absolutely in love with it. But yeah, aside from that, like, it just fell kind of flat for me. like I was saying, like certain things, certain moments throughout the film, the way you should feel at somebody's demise, or certain experiences with certain characters, I didn't feel that attached to it.
Yeah,
You know?
it made conflicting, like it's like you said, where it felt like you weren't really attached to a character.
I
And
didn't think
I wasn't attached to the protagonist all that much.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
neither
not
was
like
I.
you're watching the Mel Gibson in The Patriot and like
Or in Braveheart.
all you want. Your blood is boiled. Like literally, I hate a fictitious character in that film more than I've ever hated anybody in my real life, and I wanted to see him get revenge as much as he wanted to get revenge.
Yep.
This doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, and
And almost at points, it feels like he's the fucking asshole in the movie.
Yeah.
yeah, like it's just somebody you didn't really like. You didn't give a shit who won. Like you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
and I think it ended the way it should have.
Yeah.
So what? No spoilers, of course, of what happens. But there's some things go along the way. Some even, when I'm trying to think, I should probably start to kind of tell you the story. So, Alexander Skarsgård plays Hamill? Hummel?
I don't remember his name, but he's the
Omelette?
prince. He's a young boy and he's a prince.
He's a prince to this little kingdom where Ethan Hawke plays the king, and he makes this blood oath to say, if anything happens to me, Omelette.
Yeah.
So
Via Willem Dafoe, whose his character was
fucking
crazy. Man.
They made
was
a
awesome.
blood
Yeah.
oath of like, you will avenge me.
He's the fool, he's the jester, but he also is like clearly like in touch with the dark arts and like something very surreal and supernatural when they make this blood oath. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the film very long.
No.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah,
I liked
yeah.
him.
And afterwards, of course, in the trailers, if you've seen it, like, the king dies by the brother's hand, and on starts the Lion King and Pride Rock. And
It ends with
it ends with
Lord of the Rings, we're destroying the ring in the fires of Mount Doom.
yeah.
But not nearly as epic feeling. It just literally just
Then
wishes it
Voldemort
was that
comes out of nowhere. Holy, it was crazy. Robert.
yeah, dude, Voldemort. I thought we were doing no spoilers.
Voldemort comes out.
This
and
is
all
actually the newest installment of the Harry Potter franchise.
but instead of Scar falling from Pride Rock, it's Hans Gruber falling from Nakatomi Tower. So also got eaten by hyenas at the end of Die Hard. If spoilers for that one.
But continuing on,
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke is the father. They make the blood pact that he has to defend his father's honor if and when he dies, and the father very early in the film vows to die in battle, no matter what, by the sword.
Yeah, and then he gets killed by his brother OnStar. OnStar? Did I say that?
Mjolnir.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm not even gonna try to do the
OnStar?
Nordic names right now. Like you can keep doing that and keep stammering if you want, but I'm not naming any names because I don't know how to pronounce.
His name is OnStar for the rest of the film. Anybody who really loves that movie is gonna fucking hate me.
Mjolnir.
Oh, so the brother kills the king. He takes over the kingdom. Takes it as a cost, at that point. So now the main character's fueled by vengeance.
Goes into hiding
Yeah.
for a while. They think he's dead.
Yeah. They wanted
don't
to kill
imagine
them
that
both.
He still exists.
The bloodline.
The one guy claims that he killed him, that he saw his body float off into the ocean after he slices off his nose, and there's some gore. There's some gore in the film for sure.
Oh,
but he comes back and poses as a slave in their encampment, and they choose him because he's like a massive fucking bear if you've seen him in the
Huge.
trailers, and he's just they think he's a worthy candidate to be a part of their encampment. Little do they know he's planning on exacting vengeance.
Fucking them up.
Yeah.
And he does a good job at torturing the entire town.
Yeah.
So there's some crazy violence and
It gets pretty dark,
imagery.
Yeah.
What he
Yeah.
does with like some of the bodies and like that, like with the crows and like you remember
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that crazy like formation that made me think of The Witch. It
Yeah.
was like that was the closest thing to horror within the film, and I just felt like that was a personal choice. Like that was an homage to some really dark body horror.
Yeah.
There's parts too, like it felt more horror than like action epic too.
Yeah.
Like especially when he was going down to drink the stuff with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like it felt creepy. It felt like nerve-wracking a little bit.
So maybe it's a personal thing, but I wanted more of that.
Yeah.
A lot of ritualistic aspects to it that made it horror.
Yeah.
I think
York plays what? Like he calls her
like-
witch. Is she
yeah.
a witch?
I
Like,
think she's like some sort
blind visionary.
of yeah.
Like,
She was crazy, even the little that that she was in it.
yeah.
So
I liked her.
yeah, she was.
cool.
She was awesome. Yeah.
And Anna Taylor-Joy, playing her role in it. She was great. She's always a great actress. She played
Oh, yeah.
Status Quo.
I don't think they quite let her get her chops out.
That's
but,
what I felt.
Yeah.
she had
sure.
limited scenes, and she was kind of a side character.
I felt like that with a lot of people, but it's like maybe like the mindset of people at the time, the way people were in those ancient Nordic times. Like maybe they were men of few words. They were people of few words. They were just they lived a simpler sort of. It's not going to be like a Tarantino Coen Brothers film where it's just all laden with dialogue, you know. It's not going to be that kind of, and maybe that's what was lacking for me, that like affected the pacing and affected the development of certain characters and made me not care so much about the climax, you know.
A lot of that brings up a good point of like atmospheric directors like John Carpenter or even Wes Craven. A lot of horror directors who are great with atmosphere, and Robert Eggers is no different. That you kind of rely on the atmosphere to push almost the narrative, not the narrative, but push the movie to where you don't give a shit about the pacing. You never seen Green Knight? Did you end up watching that?
I was going to completely compare this movie to that.
Yeah. So it was just it was a very much a driving force to kind of take away from the pacing of the film.
Yeah.
And I don't think it stuck, because sometimes you're just like, what is going on here? Like I kind of, if you don't attach yourself to a character, like it's like, I don't know. This is completely when I stick to pacing and I think of poorly paced films. Think of the movie Spun. I hate that movie.
God, I love that movie.
I hate it so
Me
much.
and Allie just watched it a few weeks ago.
There's just nothing going on, and I just like I can't attach to any of
It's
you.
because it's the life of a bunch of fucking meth heads.
I know.
Nothing is going on.
I mean, granted, but it was not. There was for me. There was like not a driving story. That's the same thing for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I was like, I can't attach
I
myself.
agree with you on that. I guess a lot of drug hallucinogen type movies are like that because there really is a lack of plot.
Yeah.
If you just break it down, it's like, what's the plot of this movie? It's like, oh, that isn't a plot.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But then again, I something that's done well that's not really a plot was Clerks. I attached to the characters. Through
A day in the life.
day in the life of a clerkman.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I did with the reason I make that comparison is it's like, okay, I attach to one character, and then I really want him to succeed, and then all of a sudden I don't, and then I feel lost in the middle of the movie. And I'm just like, you know what? Now I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So, but I again, that only if it only goes true for how well your story is, and I'm sure, the Shakespearean stories I don't attach to all that well. I mean, I know that was another driving force for the plot.
I don't know much about Hamlet. I just know that this is derived from that story.
Yeah.
I'm not a Shakespearean expert myself either.
And maybe there was a lot more than I know. I don't know much, and I can't say. But any Hamlet type movie that I've watched has always been lackluster for me. Maybe it was just a driven thing. But outside of those complaints, I thought I had a great time, with the movie. I can't just say that, I didn't want to just shit on it for the next 45 minutes. I loved the violence. I did love Alexander Skarsgård. The acting was on point. The imagery was top notch, even though the ending I would have changed. But
Looked
a little wonky.
CGI.
Yeah, a little wonky.
A little just too. Yeah,
It just
too
feels
green
like-
screened.
Yeah, it feels like Robert Eggers, like he doesn't know how to utilize that budget that well yet.
I was thinking that in a couple different circumstances. We were talking about like choreography and
Yep.
stuff. And sometimes the choreography, you should never notice the choreography in a battle
Never.
sequence, in a fight sequence. You shouldn't be like, oh, that motion looked
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Yeah.
non-diegetic. That doesn't look like a real life motion, or he moved too slow for that. explosive
Yep.
reaction, and
that didn't
a couple
connect.
times my naked eye caught it, and I was like, oh, maybe Robert Eggers isn't ready for certain aspects like that. He's never made a very action-packed film.
Yeah, and for me, that's a big problem because I love war movies and I love war choreography. And if I'm not seeing the impact of things hitting people, it just doesn't feel like it sticks to me a little bit. It's just not good for
That's
me.
not even something I would normally look for.
Yeah.
So I don't go into a movie, and that's not like my repertoire. So for me to have like noticed that a couple times, like that, that means it really stands out. You know?
Yeah. That's. I'm trying to think because I'm an action junkie. I didn't really. I was it when he was Berserker, one of the Berserker moments, like when they were doing that invasion of that.
Yeah, when they're going in the city, there was one moment where he hit somebody with an axe and it looked like they just kind of didn't react correctly. Then there's one on the horse where he knocked him off the horse.
Yeah,
didn't look right.
I remember that, like the horse part.
Yeah, it's just like if something doesn't look natural, it probably isn't, kind of thing. Maybe it was just, which is weird because from what I understand, Robert Eggers is very much
very particular,
very very particular. Like he'll go like 8-9 takes on something super like just. Like walking around, I'm like, why don't we have this now?
I mean, some of those shots were probably really hard to achieve.
Yeah.
I heard that they were filming in freezing cold temperatures and terrible weather, doing trying to coordinate such big, wide, epic, sweeping scenes. And I wouldn't be surprised if like that was part of it, But I heard that I don't know if that's like one of his marketing ploys or whatever. But Robert Eggers is always like, yeah, it was such a grueling filming experience. It always is. It's like, well, why put your people through that? Like, find a way next time on movie 4 to not absolutely make everybody miserable and have them have PTSD from filming the movie. You
want to get the best out of them. I will say, it's. Like Alexander Skarsgård from like the beginning when he went berserker and it was like screaming like I was just like oh my fucking god,
that scene, the whole raid of the village was awesome.
I had no problem with any of the acting in this movie.
No,
I don't
nothing.
think any of the acting was an issue.
What's weird is like I haven't seen Tarzan. I didn't see there's another movie that he was in that I didn't know about, but last movie I saw him in was Godzilla vs. Kong, and he didn't do a very good job.
Source material.
The world needs him.
Material,
world needs Kong. I'm like,
he said, I read something saying that this is like his dream role. That he was like, as a joke, obviously he's not going to, but he was like, I can now comfortably retire after playing a Viking prince. Like he was all about the role, and you can tell that he immersed himself in it, that he really like gave it his all. He put everything into this role.
I did feel
very much a non-speaking role. Like he doesn't speak all that much.
There's not a lot of talking in general.
Yeah,
like it's the visions and almost the hallucinogen type parts that kind of drive it and kind of keep you enthralled. Like it's just a lot of eye candy.
Yeah. Horses flying toward Valhalla in the sky in some nebula-filled sky.
That looked awesome.
Black and white sequences and I mean, it's a visual spectacle for sure.
Yeah.
Not as much as The Lighthouse, but still very much so. That's Robert Eggers' style. I'm glad he still maintained that.
Yeah, he kept his style. Like you can put that up against anything, and you'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So, but overall, Shane, what would you? It didn't really get. We kind of.
I mean, my opinion is the same as it was when we left. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great.
Not a masterpiece.
Would it even be as of right now in your top 10?
Top 10 of what?
Of movies of the year?
I mean, I've only seen like 4 movies this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think
I've seen 27. So
I think it'll end in the top 10.
I think so too.
I don't think it's going to be top 5.
If I'll watch it again. I think it also demands a second viewing to kind of for not necessarily for a plot or anything, but definitely for anything I've missed. Maybe it's one of those instances where I'm like, maybe I'll like it more or less. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
a
couple days after, I feel pretty good about it. It's pretty much middle of the road. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. So it's
I feel like this movie was kind of set up like as a war epic.
That was a big thing. Yeah, you wanted a Braveheart, Patriot type, you know, and you're just like, and that was exciting. That was an exciting thing. Like
It never pulled on my heartstrings.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care if somebody died. I didn't care. Like, yeah, I did. I mean, to an extent, but like, not, like when it's really well done under those circumstances, it feels like it becomes part of your personal agenda almost. You're like, I need this. Like, I can't walk out of this movie.
We gotta get this
unless
guy.
this happens. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be fucking pissed. Like, I was like, oh, whatever happens, happens. Like, I didn't feel that attached.
I think I would have been perfectly fine. I mean, he had the choice at the end. I would have been perfectly fine if he chose the other option.
Yeah.
Decided.
there's a choice that he makes, to continue on or do something else.
Yep.
And once you see the movie, you'll find out what that is. But it's I didn't care.
Yeah, you're right. I was
I
like,
didn't give a shit.
if anything, I wanted him to make the other choice. I was like,
So we were along for the ride, but not invested. It's
Yeah.
like such a simple, good way to put it. Like,
Yeah.
the film doesn't make you feel invested, but you're still stoked to be along for the ride.
Yeah. I just definitely
100%.
still would be top 10 right now for me. And I feel like it being in the bottom half of my top 10, knowing what movies are coming out now.
Yeah.
So, again, expectations versus what happens. It's maybe once we go into like knowing what we're getting into, maybe it'll change for the better or for the worse. I'm not sure. So, but moving on, I did see. This was Thursday night. I saw the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And that movie, and I'm going to make a segment of it during the Average Joe Movie Show. It was so wholesome. Pedro Pascal, I've never seen him actually in a movie. I know he's the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And I've never seen the Mandalorian. And I know he plays a couple different other roles that are, and he's got some acting chops, man. He's so good.
He's on like an Adam Driver type tear.
He's really good, and I didn't like. Obviously, this is not like this is not on Spotlight, for his acting chops, but just the direction of the film. So Pedro Pascal plays a very rich. They classify him as an olive. He's in the olive business, if I'm not mistaken, and he wants struggling Nick Cage to come be with him for a day.
Literally Nick Cage. For anybody that's, completely ignorant, he's playing himself in the movie.
Yeah, Nick Cage has been struggling not only with acting but being a part of his family. He's going to therapy, talking to his kid. And there's a running joke about the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is funny. But he gets a phone call from his agent, played by Neil Patrick Harris? Yes. Yeah. So Neil Patrick Harris saying there's this guy who'll pay you $1 million if you just hang out with him, have a thing. And so he accepts once, a job fell through. And you're just on for this like buddy feel-good movie that turns into a typical Nick Cage movie in the end, and you're just like, it was fantastic. I was completely invested. I didn't think I would be. I thought I would just be trolled by Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Because the last meta movie I saw was, The Matrix 4. So I was just like, fuck that fucking movie. Fuck those meta movies. I was not into like meta movies, but this one trailer looked fantastic, and I was just like, and the premise was just like, the way you could just make fun of yourself, knowing that you're part of this sort of cult, and you embrace it completely, and almost forward it.
Yeah,
and
it's funny you call it a cult. It is kind of what it's like. Like the following of Nicolas Cage nowadays is almost cult-like.
Yeah,
and it's based around the fact that he's never necessarily been considered a great actor. I mean, by some he is. He's literally won the Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas, but like he's very outlandish and not classically speaking a great actor, and he picks very outlandish roles as well.
Yeah.
So in this movie, he just would you say he's got a good sense of humor? Like like the whole thing was him just kind of making fun of the tropes, not necessarily the positives, the negatives too, surrounding himself and his acting career. Like I'm hoping
there's a point where he's actually talking to his his 90s, or I think it was 80s self as Trash Cage. I forget the name of that specific character. You know, in the preview when it starts talking about fucking Nick Cage, like his fucking hair's all crazy. That's a separate entity that he talks to during the fucking movie. Like,
Wow,
and
awesome.
it's like it's just almost like a split personality between how he was. He was like, "You're Nick fucking Cage, woo!"
I'm seeing that shit tonight.
Dude, it's
You just sold me on it.
like he talks to his former self that you know, kind of follows him around, and you know, they talk about a lot of his movies. Pedro Pascal is obviously a super fan. He has a whole museum of Nick Cage stuff. He had a fucking wax made of him from Face Off, and what else? They have
$20,000 for it. Or
dude, Mandy's reference a couple times.
Really?
And he's like, a fucking masterpiece. Like, goddamn right it is.
Is it like chock full of that? Is like the whole
dude,
movie?
there's
you can expect a reference every 5 minutes. Is it like that?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's just here and there.
No, you won't.
There's Nick
You'll
Cage movie references.
and it's him as he really throws in his cinema IQ. Like, he is one of the smartest guys when it comes to film. Like, and he wants to, and that's one of the problems that he has. He can't separate his cinema self from the real, you know, father figure or husband figure. You know, and like that struggle is obviously palpable between him and his daughter. You know, because he's kind of almost, he forces people to watch these movies, or his family to watch these movies, and kind of talk through them. He's like, I don't want to talk about Cabinet of Caligari for fucking 2 hours. You know, like, that's a big thing. That's why they're in therapy. You know, because it's kind of forcing. You know, he's trying to mold himself into the child, and she's rejecting it, and that's a big problem with somebody as narcissistic. You know, that it portrays as a Nick Cage character.
Okay.
So it was, you know, diving deep into that. You know, but outside of that. Just what drives this film is Pedro Pascal and Nick Cage.
Okay.
Like, every time they're on scene together, they're both amazing. There's a point where they're
Buddy
driving.
comedy, would you say?
Yeah, buddy comedy with a little bit of action.
Yeah.
And a little bit of the regular. It turns into a Nick Cage film at the end of the movie, and you're like,
That's awesome.
That's what I thought this was going to
awesome.
turn into. You know, this crazy, stupid action movie.
I love that.
It's exactly all the tropes of the 90s Nick Cage action movies. It was just fantastic. And then at the end, you know, I'm not gonna give away exactly what happens, but it's really just 2 lines. I'm actually getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because I particularly love the moment, because I can relate to it so much. And if anybody follows my Facebook, they can understand why. Because I watched 2 movies that night, and there's a point where he's asking his 3 favorite movies of all time. One's Face Off, The Cabinet, Dr. Caligari, and a third movie, and that's the third movie that gets mentioned in the end of the movie, and it's just so good. It turns into a sentiment. Almost, I was on the verge of tears. I didn't actually cry, but I was like, it was a sentiment, and I was just like, wow, that really drove it home. It made you know, I always like those movies that, like, I'm like, oh man, that was awesome, and then a little sentimental feel at the end, and then it just ends. Yeah. It was really good. I can't wait to see it again. Like, there was parts I was just laughing out loud, and it wasn't like I was in, you know, tears, but I was just like, audible chuckles. Like, you're not gonna leave this movie thinking it's like a super bad or what have you kind of funny. Yeah. It's gonna be like, that's good. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you would expect from this movie. And then there's the belly busting laughing, but it's so good. And like I said, Pedro Pascal and Nick Cage together on screen was a perfect fit, and I loved it. I loved it more than The Northman. Sorry, guys. I thought it was not necessarily I know they're 2 completely different movies, but I felt more satisfied leaving that movie than The Northman.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this: do you guys think that expectations kind of set us up for
Exactly.
failure
I
with the
think that's
Northman.
100% what happened. The
Yeah.
trailer was deceiving in the Northman, and they made it think that we were on this epic adventure of vengeance and blood and violence.
It was gonna be like apocalypto or like just something that like something just big and wide sweeping and just so epic.
Yeah,
you know.
I was totally expecting that, and in the Nick Cage movie, I was expecting exactly what I got. Like it's exactly what you look like. You're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly
what I'm here for.
This is what I'm here for. I was like, that's why. Go back to a couple episodes ago. The trailers are fucking atrocious sometimes when it comes to this. Like, if you want us to see your movie, don't trick us.
Yeah.
Like, don't trick us into thinking that it was. This one. But then again, that's probably on me. If I probably look back to the trailer, like, maybe I looked into this wrong, but I don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I blame Universal because I mean, if they would have marketed it as what it was, then I would have still watched it.
I would
have
have
different expectations for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I went in and I hadn't even seen a trailer or I'd never heard of the movie or didn't know who was directing it, I probably would have liked it more.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Like I think I'd still be touching on the same points. It's not like it would just be a beloved film for me. I'd be like, oh, it still fell flat here and there, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's got to factor in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. But then again, I don't want to blame the director for he didn't make a terrible movie. It's just like I had expectations and
that's natural instincts. You can't change that. Like, what can you do about that? Just turn a blind. Just don't look at what's coming out. Just blindly approach films. You can't not have expectations.
Yeah,
it goes the other way too sometimes. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's only been 2 movies that I went in like blind.
Well, you mentioned Apocalypto for me. I was completely blind to what that was.
I fucking love that movie.
I was like, holy shit, what was this movie I just watched?
I love that movie.
I didn't even see a trailer. My mom just put it on. I was like, yeah.
District 9.
That one too.
Yeah.
District 9 was one.
The trailer didn't give anything away.
I didn't even watch the trailer. I didn't watch one trailer for that. And I just went in and I was like, you know what, that looks good.
Crazy.
Like I just saw the poster of just like you're not alone or something like that.
I think I watched it on FX for the first time. I was just watching TV and it was on. I was like, oh, what's this?
You guys remember Mud? Did you see Mud? Matthew McConaughey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw it twice in theaters. I saw it in theaters blindly. Hadn't even seen a trailer for it. And I liked it so much that I went and saw it again the next day.
Nice.
And it wasn't talked about at all. Didn't get an Oscar nomination. Nothing. And it was the best movie of the year and one of the best movie of recent years around that time. And that's one of those, I walked into it not knowing that that's a cinematic masterpiece. It's a great movie.
I have to watch. I honestly have to watch it again.
Nobody talks about it still. I'm like, that's just one of the best fucking movies, man.
We're a little bit on atmosphere. That atmospheric movie, that kind of like in the in the swamplands almost, and like kind of southern Georgia, North Florida type,
bayou,
Everglades, maybe even, and
dirty, filthy. Everything's just disgusting. They're living off the river and all the boats in their houses. It's a Huckleberry Finn-esque story. But it's a coming of age story. 2 young boys learning about life, via a fugitive who ends up becoming a role model. It's one of the most well-written stories I can still remember in recent years.
I think I do.
I don't know why that one comes to mind for me. I got to rewatch that.
Yeah, I would. We should probably do that. I'm doing this right here, live in time, right now. We should, because I always reference you movies, and I try to show you the trailer. Sometimes I'm just gonna be like, "Watch this fucking movie." I'm not gonna tell you fucking anything. About it.
He does that a lot.
A
lot.
I think
more often than not, it works out. Mandy was one of them, actually.
Was it Mandy?
One of them. Yeah, you pulled out Mandy on me. Or no, I did.
I pulled out the trailer. I was like, "Oh my god, look at this trailer!" And
I anticipated the movie. But I wasn't like necessarily super looking forward to it. But one day I came over here and you're like, we're watching Mandy, and you just threw it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched it here for the first time.
Oh yeah, that's right. And we couldn't get it to work.
You saw it in theaters, I think, right?
Yeah, it was in theaters one day.
Oh, yeah, and the movie was fucking up. But yeah, I saw it here for the first time, and you just kind of just pulled it out of nowhere and threw it on, and that happens a lot.
Hey man, I'm gonna fucking gag you and make you watch this fucking movie. So, and that's good. That's why I have a podcast, by the way. I force you to watch movies that I want you to watch. Hey man, watch John Wick. Mm-hmm. So,
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Dude, I'm all about Planet of the Apes now. And I always liked the original, but like I'm all about like the newer trilogy now.
And that's the guy. That's Matt Reeves, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and he's making the trilogy of the Batman, and also whatever happens with the Penguin show. And is there another show going on with the? Is there?
They're talking about multiple spin-offs. HBO
I don't know
Max
about
series.
that, man.
What do you mean?
I love the Penguin, and I think there's a lot you can expand on with the Penguin, but like, I don't like the whole spin-off cinematic universe type thing.
Just on I would
it
love
would be standalone.
I agree.
I wouldn't mind it being a collective rather than an expanding universe. Excuse me, got the hiccups. But with like Marvel's universe, they're expanding like almost like a disease almost, rather than keeping it contained. Because and we'll talk about it next week. When we talk about the Doctor Strange movies, because you don't want to. I guess you don't want to stay in your wheelhouse because it'll get stale. You get you'll have fatigue from a certain comic book fatigue, which I think is still palpable in the comic book world, in the movie world right now. Because if it's not fucking Marvel, it's DC. If it's not DC, it's fucking Star Wars. Like it's just like you're tired of this shit. And then not to dive in too much of a rant, but it's just like I'm about to change subjects ever so slightly. Sequels are for movies and for shows. Just fucking spin it off and don't connect it. I almost don't want to even connect to the films.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna make a spin-off, make a goddamn spin-off and just that's it. Like don't try to connect it and make this universe huge. And it's hard to keep up. Like viewers, the pandemic's over now, like, ish. Like people aren't staying in their houses going to watch and binge a bunch of films anymore. Like people are going out and about, like, kind of dial it back in. Like it got a little crazy during the pandemic with TV shows, like, and it took over the world, which is why Netflix now has lost 200,000 members. Well,
I mean, you hate TV shows, but a lot of people love TV shows.
Well, the thing is,
TV.
Okay, I hear your argument. I reject it completely. But no, I check this out. Remember when TV shows came out on Netflix? How they came out? They came out all at once. Now look at it. Guess where they went back to? A regular scheduled 1 week an episode. And now, now they're making more movies than TV shows. Like if you've seen Netflix's lineup, there's like 42 movies coming out. And then how many times did they push back Stranger Things, relying on that?
Yeah.
Like it's Stranger. And again with how well Tiger King did, and how not well season 2 went. People are over it. Like I mean, I'm not here to speak for everybody, all our 20 members that watch the show. But I'm just saying, if you're out there and you love TV shows, all the power to you. But you don't want to be convoluted. It just makes things more convoluted. Going back to my point of mixing movies and TV into the same realm. It just makes
They've
things
always been separate realms.
Always been. Like stay in your lane. If you are gonna, same thing with the books. The books are different though, because the books can, they take a piece from the canon, and then but they don't branch off to go back in. Like, oh, we're gonna make this story separate, even though you could have just. That's the thing about these Marvel movies. They could have all been movies, or these Marvel shows. They could have all been movies. Every single one of them, maybe except WandaVision. Every other one could have been just fine. And it's just not that. And I'm kind of just sick of it. I'd rather watch a 2-hour movie with a lot better pacing. These TV shows are just horribly paced. I'm watching Moon Knight. I fucking like it and I hate it at the same time.
I think that's a subjective opinion, because I mean,
of course it is. I mean, I'm not basing.
I mean, of TV shows, because I can just watch this and get a little bite to eat, and then watch the next one, and then.
Well, okay, that's the power of pause. That's not the power of pacing. The power of the.
But I mean, it's spread out amongst 8 like if I were to watch or 8, 10, whatever episodes, if I were to watch a movie, then I pretty much sit for the duration of that movie.
If it were a 10-hour movie, the pacing doesn't change.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just have to have the mental fortitude to be able to sit down and watch a 10-hour movie if
Yeah.
it were going to be that long. It just allows for more creative freedom. Having more time on screen, I mean, that's the natural human pacing. You're not going to be able to sit down and watch 24 hours of a movie, you know? You
Yeah.
have to be able to pause. But if you were to look at it and view it as a whole, it still technically has the same tempo and pacing, just stretched out over a long period of time, you know? But so would you say like Netflix trying to do both, trying to do everything, becoming the world's superpower, do you think it's a bad idea, or is it just too overly ambitious?
I think it just
Or
maybe they're just
greed? Is it just
Like,
greedy? Like,
that
is
I
it-
think there's a-
Disney Plus, I would definitely feel that way with
Yeah,
Netflix
yeah.
so much. You know, they're prolonging Stranger Things. Like they put what $500 million into their new season.
The problem is content. The problem, like they're caught. There's other streaming services that caught them with content, and a lot of the material they had before weren't on streaming services, and other people own those IPs. So before there was a Disney Plus, Disney movies were on Netflix. The Office was on Netflix before Peacock was a thing.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of HBO specials that run Netflix.
Yeah.
So the problem is that they don't have good original content, and they're
Right.
not caught up with the
Well,
stuff that HBO Max offers.
that-
Which is way better to me.
That's awesome.
HBO Max is the shit.
But the thing I'm talking about, like, I know I'm beating this into the ground when it comes to, but the source material that you do have that you do own, you beat it into the ground, and then you can't. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
Stranger Things
you're
for me, it's just. I think it's dead. Like,
do you
it's-
remember
That's
the
how I
last
feel,
season?
too. I'm not super stoked on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been so long since I watched the last season that I do need to rewatch it.
Yeah, like it's just like it. It's almost like I don't want to call it like long enough for a reboot, obviously, because it's only been just less than 3 years. But it's just like, you know, like when you wanted a sequel, you had to wait, you know, at least a year and a half, what have you, like depending on how well it did, I guess. But it's just like, you know, they're taking their fucking time. That's another fucking thing. I just I can't stand. I understand that you want to have the product you have, but you also just like. And again, pandemic happened. I'm not stupid when it comes to that. It's just with all this stuff being pushed back. Honestly, you can easily manage it nowadays in this day and age with Zoom calls and, you know, just say computer animation. Like, I'm sure all that shit was done filming after a while.
Yeah, it should not take as long as it's taking to you know, film some of these seasons.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the pandemic was a big part of that. But even so, even with that set aside, it's like you should be able to whip out a season a year.
Yeah.
You know? Otherwise, you lose interest. Ozark's done it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ozark is in the same arena and is worth mentioning because it's like considered one of the most popular Netflix series of all time. You know,
And The Boys too.
Yeah.
The Boys, I
Yeah.
would say, is a good example because every year they're coming out with a new season.
to me,
So.
with the series though, like what are movies and what are TV shows are just essentially an escape. We're escapists. We want out of our life and our mindset for a prolonged period of time. We want to experience something different. We want to live vicariously through somebody else without taking risks, you know. And with a show, it like for the addict in me is the one saying this because I'm like a binge watcher and I'm an addict.
me too.
It just gives me more of that, you know. And that's how maybe it's greed or whatever. I just want more.
It's
you
stretched
know?
out.
And when I go and watch a 2-hour movie or even a 3-hour movie, I get stoked when it's a 3-hour movie because it means there's more content. Like I just want more, you know. And when it's a TV show, it just feels more fulfilling because I get that. Like it's like, okay, I can devote 2 weeks of my life to this, you know. It's not healthy. It's not a healthy perspective, but it's one that a lot of people relate to. It's like 2 hours isn't enough for me anymore.
I feel like
And
I need 2 weeks.
That's great, and I agree with all of that. Just imagine let's talk about Sons of Anarchy. Is there ever a stretch that you don't watch?
No, I've seen
like
it all the way through 5 times, I think. now.
Like okay, let's just.
I believe.
What about
season 4
Lost?
Yes.
Okay.
I get lost
All right.
during Lost.
All right. So think
But
about
that's
this.
25 episode seasons.
So in Lost, you know, it's a movie produced and created by J.J. Abrams. You know, they get lost on this island from a plane. You know, and there's how many people? Like 16 people are stuck on an island. They try to survive, and there's certain things that happen that, you know, it ends on a cliffhanger. right? And then you won't see
every single episode.
every single episode, every single hour episode,
Yeah.
and you have to wait. Well, it came on Sundays, and you had to wait, not a week.
Oh,
You never had to wait a week because the next episode, which would come a week later, has nothing to do with it.
yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, I never had to watch it that way. Thankfully,
Yeah,
I could
that's-
sit there
that's
and
one
binge
of-
watch 13 episodes if I wanted. But yeah, what would happen is one episode would be all about one character and their backstory in the real world off the island and whatever, and you'd get so invested in it,
And
then
you're talk about it all
it
week
wouldn't return
long.
to that for 4 episodes. It would do 4 other characters.
So-
after, So
So
I
let's think
can't
about a
imagine-
month before you get resolution on that.
Then you forget
Yeah.
what's happening.
yeah.
I feel like
How I wouldn't have been able to stay in touch with Lost
Yeah.
if I had watched it on television.
Like everybody, I remember everybody
makes
was
sense.
talking about
That's
it
a
at
good
Black
argument.
Beers. That's what I mean by like TV shows in its regular form,
Yeah.
not necessarily as a binge. Like I can binge watch. I binge watched Love Is Blind. Like I like shows, like and stupid shows too. Like the guy who's watched Love Is Blind, but not The Mandalorian. I'll get fucking just.
I gotta go. Have a good one, guys.
Hey man, he left the podcast forever.
oh, this is the guy that hates TV. That's kind of
I
You just
understand.
invalidated everything you've said.
I understand how TV is this in that realm. It's just
It's just
there's certain things that are just like
it's just like when you're watching a movie, it's like eating a slice of cheesecake. Where a TV series is like eating pieces of that same slice of cheesecake. You're still gonna eat the whole thing. It's just gonna be divided up in smaller chunks.
Yeah.
It might not be a
I-
great
I
example,
mean-
'cause you can put more material into it. Like
I get what you're saying. I'm not even gonna be like whatever. I have the weirdest analogies
Analogies,
of all.
yeah.
It's just
I've heard
just
some
the
doozies
sand.
from that.
I really want
I've
some
heard some
cheesecake, too.
doozies of analogies from that for sure.
I can't be like that's out there, but I would have probably said the same thing. So I was like, you ever seen
No, I know what
you
you
ever
mean.
seen A Serious Man from Joel and Ethan Coen?
Yeah.
It's the parking lot. The parking lot. That's all they mention. I'm just like, that movie's fucking crazy, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
let's get back to Netflix because
No,
it's a hot topic right now. And I'm
well,
interested
I mean,
what you think.
Netflix is
they're gonna go the way of Blockbuster, but I'm
maybe
curious as to-
think so?
they can bounce back.
They keep raising their prices. They just did again last month.
Well, that's what
I
happens.
rarely watch
$15
Netflix.
then.
I only keep Netflix because and they also started stating that if anybody else uses your account, they're gonna start slapping
Yeah.
fees on you. Like you sons of
And
bitches,
it's 20.
man.
I think it's 21 for 4K. I think it's like 3 tiers now. There's like a standard tier, and then there's like a upgraded tier for multiple screens or whatever. And then there's 4K, which is like 20 something bucks.
Oh, dude, that's fucking
I'm wondering
insane.
where do they
Yeah.
cap off on like what Netflix charges, and they obviously have to charge more because their production budgets have gone up so astronomically.
Yeah.
Well, did we ask for that? No. Like I just want to watch like half the shit I watch on there is from the 70s
Yeah.
and 80s.
Yeah,
Like
guess
I didn't ask for them to make 42 movies this year, so I don't want to be paying $60 5 years from now and
Yep.
have it be more than my entire internet bill.
That makes perfect sense because take a look at how does Amazon Prime outsource their money to have their production? Amazon, HBO, AT&T, like they're making it all themselves.
Yeah.
Like
Not to mention they have good shows
Yeah.
from HBO, their original content.
exactly, and Netflix did a fantastic job making what they have today. And
Yeah.
it's
I
a great
applaud them.
template. It really is.
Yeah, and
like,
they're the pioneers of
Wish
the
it was my
streaming
idea.
service. They're not. They were the first to get there, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I still watch Netflix. Right now I watched so much Fairly Odd Parents this week.
Oh my god, bro! It's been on a repeat in my fucking house.
I love it. Like
I've
that.
been singing the song, like
Dude, love it so much. Like if granted, I know you have to make new content, make it fresh, what have you. That like it's a saturated world now. Like, and honestly, you're kind of the what's the term, enemy of my own creation, or I don't know. They created something, and now it's almost that's the big problem that they created. I
Yeah.
forget. I don't know how to say it
like
exactly.
Frankenstein's in his
Yeah. So
You know,
you made
yeah.
Frankenstein's monster, at this point, and now there's like 700 Frankensteins. So out there, I don't know. Let's talk about bad analogies. Listen, cheesecake and Frankensteins. One eats one. You know, which one has it?
I like to think about Netflix like beer. You know, I'm gonna continue to consume it. I like drinking it. It makes me drunk, but it's probably not the best idea. I don't know. That's my analogy for the
day. I'm dying. That's okay. All right. I get it. You know, it's like the parking lot. You know,
well,
it's just the sand.
It's just the sand.
It's just the sand.
What do you think they need to do to be more relevant? Lower the price again?
I mean, I'm not an exec on Netflix, and you know they've long regarded themselves, you know, as the place to go for stand up outside of HBO. HBO was the place to go,
Prime's
and now
got some good stuff now too.
Now Prime's up, and you know they were knocking them out of the park with their Orange and Black. Orange is the New Black. I'm sorry.
Mindhunters was great, and they canceled that.
Yeah, and they, you know, obviously Stranger Things really put them on the map. I think that was the big one that really put them over the top.
I like Peaky Blinders a lot. That was originally like BBC, and Netflix adopted it. But I mean,
speaking of which, they have the new season out.
It's on Netflix now?
It's not on Netflix yet.
I know.
It's released.
Yeah, I heard that. I was going to say, if it's on Netflix now, I'm ending the podcast now.
I'm watching it today.
That's one of my favorite shows of all time. And Netflix is what brought that to us Americans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I couldn't really tell you what Netflix should do, you know? Like again, I think they just kind of have to play it out, and you know, I would stop fucking driving up your prices, because that's exactly how the competition wins, because they undercut the competition. You know, like you're the competition. You're the one with the target on its back.
I heard they're also cutting funding to animation.
That's so stupid.
Yeah, no, that's free money. Like you could just outsource stuff from Japan and just pay.
Like, imagine, I think
production costs.
What they should probably do, they did have Attack on Titan at one point. They did have a couple of animes. I think if they outsourced outside of, like, get a lot more foreign films in there, and there's a lot more cult movies too. Like
HBO Max is doing that well.
Yeah,
with all the Studio Ghibli stuff. Like I was just scrolling through the other day, and they got all the good like Kiki's Delivery Service and Howl's Moving Castle, and like just a lot of like the cool classic anime, and like
that's the best streaming service out there right now.
Say content wise, HBO Max.
I'm surprised when I scroll. Even Disney Plus does pretty well too. But yeah, HBO Max. When I scroll through HBO Max, I'm like. I find myself wondering why I subscribe to any other service.
Yeah,
There's no reason to have anything else. They have everything I could ever want to watch on HBO Max.
They have
well-rounded.
They have Courage the Cowardly Dog.
They do. They have Cartoon Network.
Yeah, they
I
have
looked through
Dexter's
their horror selection last night. They probably have the best horror selection.
No.
Aside from actually, you know who has a good horror selection? Is Tubi TV. Tubi.
Yeah, that's right. That's
you know,
where
and it's free, and you watch it with ads. And dude, they have like VHS era, every obscure, interesting, weird horror film you could ever think of from the 80s, like all kinds of stuff, man. They do well on horror, but I was surprised to see that HBO Max actually has a really good horror selection. I'm talking like all kinds of Criterion stuff mixed in with great 80s slasher, mixed in with modern James Wan, like they just have a really wide variety, and that's just the one genre I went through. Other than, like I said, I was looking through animated and a couple other things. You know?
So, and also, I mean, I'm not going to try to open up another can of worms, but I said it yesterday that Sony's making better animated movies than Disney.
Oh yeah, that's a can of worms.
Yeah, so we'll save that one for the new Sony movie that comes out, which will be Spider-Verse, which is actually now next year. Fuck, man.
I mean, you haven't seen Encanto, so.
Yes, I did. Bitch.
It's pretty good.
No, you didn't.
It's okay. It's good. It's good, but it's not. I listen. We said we weren't gonna fucking open it.
Yeah, I'll let you speak your opinion, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's just. I guess that's like your opinion, man. All right. Well, we got to get going. What are we running at? 45.
54.
58. 4 minute. 54 minutes. So we gotta get to our sponsor. And that's our show, at least for now, everybody. But we got one thing to show you. We have Drew's picks and he's gonna he's going to tell you also about the sponsor today, which is Ragged Cadavers, because he made that shit. Take it over, Drew.
Yes. Keep it short and sweet this time on the Drew's Picks aspect of it. Nightbreed, one of my favorite films ever made, 1990. My first viewing was when I found it at a garage sale for 50 cents. And It fucked me up, scared the shit out of me as a kid, and kind of invoked, it was one of the early films that made me love horror films. So it's Clive Barker who created Hellraiser, Pinhead. Anybody who's into the genre knows that. But I've met very many people that love Hellraiser that don't know anything about Nightbreed. They don't even know that the film exists. So it was a box office flop. They didn't even make their money back on it. Absolutely just got shit on by so many people. Fox made the movie and basically forced Clive Barker in a direction he didn't want to go in. And the main direction was that the monsters are the good guys and the human beings, are the bad guys. And at that time, that wasn't marketable. Slashers were really big. The Halloween movies and the Friday the 13th movies were still big. The studios thought it was a risky endeavor to promote the monster and love the monster. So at one point in time, this movie had the most monsters ever in a film in the Guinness Book of World Records on screen. All practical effects. Just such an interesting story, and it is a slasher story tied in. There's David Cronenberg, who's also a master of horror.
Comes out with a
made
new movie
Scanners,
soon.
made The Fly, made Videodrome. So many great horror films. Plays the antagonist slasher, who pins his murders on Craig Schaefer, another character in the story, who basically sets out to kill the Nightbreed because they're different and he can't be a part of them. It's just a really interesting story. I love it. So I decided to make some pins on it. Rag Cadavers is my company. Started 2020, March of 2020, and now I'm 12. Well, I guess with this, I would be 14 pins in. So this is a 3-pin set that I just released last week, and unfortunately, it's not the most popular movie of all time. If it was, I wouldn't be trying to advocate it right now. I try to pick movies that aren't in the spotlight, But yeah, made a 3-pin set, and I guess I'll go ahead and show it to you.
Just gives him the finger. Boof! Fuck you.
So
and I hate
also,
that movie.
I designed the backing card, front and back here. The front
You want to show it up there?
Yeah, I'll bring it up there. The Gate of Midian on the front, and on the back, it just advertises Rag Cadavers, But, yeah.
Yeah, take a look. Yeah. I actually was in the same boat of knowing Clive Barker's Hellraiser and not Nightbreed. And it wasn't until, Scream Factory actually came out with their box set, the director's box set of Nightbreed, knowing that they're going to take out the director's cut. And it actually still took me 2 years even after that, after Drew told me about that whole thing. And I've seen it 3 times since. So, and that's and even him talking about it, seeing the pins, I can't wait to I'm going to buy that set, and I'm going to be postering on the board here soon enough,
It's a beloved cult film that has survived over the years because of cult fans, including that long sought-after director's cut that came out. They had lost nearly 45 minutes of original material, so the movie always kind of had this weird feel. It had a lot of plot holes. It didn't flow super nicely, but we still loved it. Now it makes more sense if you get to see the Scream Factory director's cut. But yeah, I still just don't think the film gets the recognition that it deserves.
And it should. It's up there. Clive Barker is the master of his craft.
It's definitely my pick for the week. It made Clive Barker he made one other movie, Lord of Illusions, after that, but it basically put a bad taste in his mouth in film, in Hollywood. He's he's a writer, and he's a painter, and he's a recluse. So naturally, he doesn't want to be a part of Hollywood, so...
Yeah.
Fuck Fox for ruining Clive Barker as a director.
Yeah. Yeah. He even gets pissed when you talk about Hellraiser. He doesn't want to fucking talk. You talk to him now. We talked to him, 2 years ago at Screamfest?
Yeah.
Or a year ago. It'd be 3 years ago. God damn, 3 years ago. And he was all about talking about it. He signed my Candyman along with Tony Todd.
Yeah.
And he absolutely loved talking about that stuff again. Then again, he's in the later stage of his life now, and he's probably kind of not say taking anything for granted, but he's just like he's enjoying the moment, because he might not have much time left. So, but yeah, that's our show for the day. Anything else? Do you want to open up the can of worms now, Shane? Shane, I'll get up at this seat. I swear to God.
No, we'll save it for a later date.
Yeah, we'll save it for when Into the Spider-Verse 2 comes out in June of next year. Fuck.
It's gonna be so good though.
Yeah, there's 2 parts to it too. But but next week, Sam Raimi. I'm gonna watch The Quick and the Dead 7 times. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I love that fucking movie. It's probably outside of the Evil Dead series, it's my favorite Sam Raimi film. So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to preview Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Drew, I hope you're all caught up on Marvel by then.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Just
it's all gonna make perfect sense to me for sure.
Are you gonna watch the movie and you'll be like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
I'm gonna at least watch the Doctor Strange movies and Spider-Man, like what I've missed, directly
Anything he's
that correlates with that character.
I can understand that. That's probably because apparently there in the preview I heard Patrick Stewart in it.
Oh,
as Professor Xavier.
What the?
Sick.
Maybe. Maybe.
Oh my God! All
right. There's a citadel that he goes to in the preview, and in the background, I think we should tell him, and it sounds in the cadence of Professor Xavier, and it's obviously fucking Patrick Stewart. So
holy shit! All right, sold. So
you're goddamn welcome.
If there's one person out there that's watched every single episode we've ever done or whatever, anytime we get into Marvel, I always state that the only thing I really truly enjoy in Marvel is X-Men.
Yeah.
I love all the X-Men movies.
Yeah, and this we'll talk about it next week, but the trailer is so hidden. Like, it's not like what they did with the Spider-Man trailers where they at least fucking released the villains before the obvious getting back Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. So I am super excited to talk about whenever we talk about next week's show. And but that's next week. You can visit the Average Joe Movie Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm starting to do it more often. I should have posted that whole Sony pictures, what have you, on Twitter. Probably get still nothing. I have no followers, I think.
I also probably dropped the ball on Ragged Cadavers, just ragged _cadavers on Instagram. If you're trying to quickly locate these pins.
Yeah, if you can't,
in the link in the bio on Instagram or your very first search on Google, it'll pop up.
Yeah, or you can go to the Average Joe Movie Show as well, and we'll send you the link right over there if you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I'm Matt Wallace. This is Andrew Brown. Say goodbye. Shane Santley, don't you dare click on yourself.
Hey.
What the fuck is that? And we will see you all next week. And it's gonna be May.
It's gonna be May.
What?
It's gonna be May.
It's gonna be May.
We got them. See y'all next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good time. Bye.